One of those who works the closest to us, with us, is our current mayor, and I'm honored to welcome him as our speaker today. Eric Johnson was elected the 60th mayor of Dallas in 2019, and prior to becoming mayor, he represented the city of Dallas with distinction from April of 2010 until June 2019 as a member of the Texas House of Representatives. Those of you who received TEG grants during your time here were beneficiaries of his strong support of this program. And in addition to serving as mayor of Dallas, he's an attorney and a partner with the international law firm of Locke Lord. I'm sure you've seen the SMU billboards around town featuring our born and raised Mustang football players, who today, of course, are in Boca Raton for a bowl. But you could describe our mayor in the same way. He is one of only 2 mayors of those 60 in the history of Dallas who was actually born in Dallas. He attended a school in the Dallas Independent School District in the 1st grade, and before earning a scholarship to Green Hill School through the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Dallas. He attended Harvard, where he graduated cum laude with a degree in history, followed by a law degree from the University of Pennsylvania and a master's degree in public affairs from the Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs at Princeton. He lives in Dallas with his wife, Nikki, and their 2 sons, William and George. He's a member of the Mountain View Church of Christ, and as you may have noticed from his Twitter account, he's a strong SMU fan. He has joined with us in strengthening our town and gown relationship, as it's called, an important connection between the city and the academy. And he's embraced SMU's pledge to be Dallas's university. He also shares in our pony pride, cheering on the football team in their Dallas jerseys and helmets. The new logo featuring Peruna running through the Triple D links our Division I home football team with our cosmopolitan global city, and has become very popular on sweatshirts, caps, and many other items. In fact, our bookstore has sold over 10,000 items with that logo on them since it began in October. When the Mustangs beat TCU on their own turf, Mayor Johnson rejoiced with us and invited the team to City Hall to show off the Iron Skillet Trophy. It was icing on the cake for our team, and one that we were wearing those jerseys. And of course, they did it again at Houston, playing the University of Houston. So it's been fun to be victors in these interstate rivalries and to have these Mustang jerseys on with the city of Dallas also a part of it. The key to his career and yours is the pursuit of higher education. He's an avid supporter of SMU's work with the DISD and Toyota USA in creating an important STEM school in the West Dallas neighborhood where he grew up. It's a public-private partnership that, like this one, helps prepare students who might not otherwise get the opportunity to compete for the next generation of STEM jobs and become leaders in business and their communities. In all aspects of our relationship, we appreciate very much the mayor's strong support. So would you please join me in proudly welcoming to our December 2019 commencement, the Honorable Mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson.
Dr. Turner, Dr. Moore, Chairman Dedman, Vice Chairman Miller, trustees, deans, faculty, distinguished members of our presenting platform, students, friends, family, and most of all, graduates. I want to thank you for inviting me to be here today with you on this very special occasion. I'm incredibly honored, and yes, I am a huge fan of SMU. I look forward to the continued partnership between SMU and the City of Dallas, which I guarantee you will only grow and deepen over the years that I'm mayor. 2 months ago, we all woke up to a changed Dallas. A tornado, actually several tornadoes, formed in the blackened sky not far from here and ripped through our city. At one point, broadcast warnings declared the tornadoes were touching down just north of this beautiful campus. The very next day, when the sun finally came out, I surveyed the damage beyond the numerous police barricades erected to protect our city's residents from the dozens of downed power lines and other potentially fatal hazards. Decades-old live oak trees had been torn out of the ground by their roots, like you or I would pull up small garden weeds, and thrown across front lawns and neighborhood streets. Roofs of homes and businesses were completely gone. Large vehicles, and I'm talking about pickup trucks and SUVs, had been upended by the incredible winds and lay upside down in the streets. Gaping holes in houses exposed where children had slept soundly just the night before. Schools and places of worship were decimated. Steel was literally twisted in knots from the sheer force of the winds that slammed against what had taken so long and so much effort to build. On October 20th, dreams and livelihoods vanished in the night. And for hundreds of our city's residents, plans changed. SMU was lucky. We were all lucky. I'm still amazed, actually, that 2 months later, by the lack of a single fatality or even a serious injury after an EF3 tornado tore through a residential portion of America's 9th largest city. And the randomness and uncertainty of life was laid bare when the sun came up and you could see indescribable damage on one side of a street and pristine, completely untouched property on the other side. I hope you'll consider that uncertainty today. You've spent your time at SMU and really all the years of your young life up to this point preparing for something, planning for something, whatever comes next. Some of you may have made plans around certain milestones in your life. Maybe you want to start a family by the time you're 30. Maybe you want to make enough money to retire by the time you're 50 so you can kick back on a beach somewhere. Or maybe you have a loftier vision and you want to achieve world peace. But maybe you're not sure. Maybe today you're wondering, after all the hard work it took just to get to this day, what your purpose is. What were these years here at SMU all for? Let me tell you a story about where I was when I was your age. The year was 1998, around the time that many of you were born, which I'm not even gonna lie, makes me feel really old. 4 years before that, in 1994, I had left my working class family in Oak Cliff to attend college at Harvard. I had been a very active high school student. I played varsity sports, I was in the band, I participated in student government, I did community service. Of all the activities to which I devoted considerable time in high school, however, the only one that I continued in college was community service. I became the director of a summer program for disadvantaged youth during my freshman year in college that required me to remain in the Boston area for the entire summer after my freshman year and to actually live in the same federal housing project where the kids in my program lived. Eventually, I took over all of the community service programming for both my fraternity and the Black Students Association. As I'm sure some of you can relate to, senior year came around faster than I expected, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do next. I distinctly remember that after 11 years of college prep school and 4 years of Harvard, the idea of going straight to graduate school or law school wasn't exactly selling itself. The economy was booming, and I, along with dozens of other directionless liberal arts majors, got sucked into the on-campus job recruiting craze. Even though everything I'd ever done up to that point outside of my schoolwork had been about community service. I did know that I wanted to come back to Dallas. Many of my classmates got jobs on Wall Street, and I got one too, actually. But I intentionally only interviewed with firms that had Dallas offices in addition to New York, believing that once I had a job offer in hand, I could use my fancy liberal arts education to help me negotiate being assigned to Dallas. Well, my plan actually worked. I got hired by a Wall Street investment bank, went to New York to be trained, and then immediately requested that I be relocated to Dallas. My request was granted, and before I knew it, I was back here in Dallas, living in the village, driving a pre-owned Lexus that I'd bought from Sewell Lexus, and I promptly named Candy. I didn't even have to put any money down to buy Candy. I just had to produce a copy of my college diploma, talk about the benefits of higher education. Life was good. I was making more money than my parents had made combined during their peak earning years, which, to be quite honest, says more about how underpaid my parents were in their blue-collar jobs than about how much I was making as an investment banking analyst. I was young, I was single, and I was on a track that would have set me up for life. I could have worked hard, made my money, and maybe even retired by age 50. And I was miserable, absolutely miserable. How could that be? Well, every day when I got to work and immersed myself in the Excel spreadsheets full of numbers and dollar signs that I had created to model potential mergers and acquisitions, I felt like an imposter, like I was living someone else's life. My job was causing me, for the first time, to question who I was and who I was supposed to be. But at the same time, I felt what I thought was the tremendous weight of everyone's expectations on my shoulders. You see, in my mind, I was an aberration. The 4 years I was in high school in Dallas, between 1990 and 1994, were the 4 most violent years in the modern history of the United States. I actually mean this literally. Since the FBI began collecting violent crime data in 1960, the 4 most violent years on record to this day are 1991, 1992, 1993, and 1994. I delivered the commencement address at my high school in 1994. And in that speech, I talked about a friend of mine who attended the same high school and who had been shot and killed while he was home for winter break from Texas A&M just the year before. So, despite living in one of the most violent neighborhoods in one of our country's then most violent cities, during the most violent period in our country's history, I somehow managed to escape completely unharmed. And not just unharmed, I actually came out ahead. But I knew that so many of my peers didn't have the same opportunities that I had. They didn't get a scholarship from the Boys and Girls Club in the 2nd grade to attend a college prep school like I did. They grew up as poor or even poorer than I did, and they did so in homes less loving than mine, and frequently without both of their parents present in their lives like I was blessed to have. No, at 22 years old, most of my peers, young African American men who were born and raised in southern Dallas, weren't working in a skyscraper downtown. They were trapped within the confines of generational poverty, a prison cell, or in the worst cases, a coffin. Victims of senseless violence, unintentional drug overdoses, and even suicide. How could I feel this way? I hadn't come as far as I'd come, only to fail at something big for the first time in my life, and to do so in such a spectacular fashion. And then, of course, there was the money itself. I'll never forget one Saturday when I took my grandmother, who helped raise me, along with my siblings and most of my first cousins here in Dallas, shopping at North Park. I remember buying her a dress that day and her telling me that I was the first of her grandchildren to ever do something like that for her, and that she wanted to be buried in that dress. Can you imagine how that made my 22-year-old self feel? The fact was, however, that path, one that could have led to incredible wealth and all that comes with it, wasn't the right one for me. I wasn't sure to whom I could turn to talk about these feelings I was having, but I took a shot in the dark and emailed a young lawyer whom I admired and had met once, briefly, when he came to speak at Harvard during my senior year. I won't mention his name because he's actually running for president right now. I asked in a long, rambling email what he would do if he were in my shoes. To my surprise, he actually responded, and he was blunt. "Get out," he said. "You think your family and friends will be disappointed? They'll get over it. You might think they want certain things for you, but what they actually want is for you to be happy. Do what you were meant to do." After I read that email, I realized that I had failed, and in truly spectacular fashion. I had failed to be honest with myself and true to who I was. So I quit my job, and I went to work in the Texas Legislature, earning next to nothing. And I even had to sell old candy. And I was happy. I eventually went on to grad school and law school and ultimately became a public finance lawyer because I had, in fact, learned some useful finance concepts from my foray into investment banking, and because I could see how my daily work made a difference in people's lives. I also continued to pursue my passion for community service, and in 2010, I returned to the Texas Legislature, this time as a member of the House of Representatives. Now, I'm the mayor of my hometown, a great city that I hope you'll call home for the rest of your lives. I'm very blessed, but I only got where I am today by being honest with myself. Now, I want to be clear. If you love investment banking or finance, I don't want to discourage you from pursuing those career paths. Those aren't inherently miserable career paths. And when I get to City Hall on Monday, President Turner, I don't want my voicemail to be filled with angry messages from the Cox School of Business guys. Okay? But what is miserable is to not follow your passion and be true to yourself. In that vein, I hope you'll consider a career in public service and dedicate at least some of your time to your community. Our community here in Dallas needs you. To me, the enduring image of the tornado won't be the streetlights folded to the ground, or the blown out gym at St. Mark's, or the massive amounts of destruction I saw that next morning. It'll be the image of dozens of people who picked up their neighbors' belongings and carried them down the block to a U-Haul, stepping over down power lines over the way. It'll be the neighbors who grabbed their chainsaws and went to work cutting up fallen trees. It'll be the firefighters who rushed into action to search for people who might have been trapped or injured. It'll be the city crews who teamed up to remove the massive amounts of debris so our city could move forward. And perhaps what I'll remember the most won't be an image at all. It'll be a feeling, the love for family, friends, and even complete strangers that so many of our residents exhibited. In your life, you will face tests, uncertainty, moments of doubt, and even tornadoes. Statistically speaking, it probably won't be a literal tornado, but you will likely experience loss and sudden crises that force you to change your plans. And the challenges of your time are going to be immense. The downsides of automation and globalization, the effects of climate change, the ongoing wars and military conflicts, the cycles of poverty that create generations of people bereft of opportunity. But you're here today because you're people of talent and persistence. Those characteristics are more than sufficient to meet the challenges that you and your peers are going to face. Your generation, like the greatest generation, will be one that future generations will have to thank for its willingness to sacrifice for the greater good and for posterity, should you choose not to run from this mantle, but rather to embrace it. And I pray that you will embrace it. In uncertain times, you may never know exactly what will come next for you, but you'll never have to regret living a life full of purpose. I pray that you will find your purpose. Thank you very much, and may God bless the class of 2019. Pony up.